to ask what is the approach of the EU and Germany for collaboration with Latin America, specifically with El Salvador? Thank you.
Und Sie antworten jetzt? Ja.
So thank you for your questions. I try to answer to them. So first, about investment. I think it is necessary that we do a lot for raising the figures for investing more into infrastructure all over Europe, but also in Germany especially. And for making this feasible, I think we must develop our capacity for doing so. And this is why I discussed about different figures which we could use for enlarging investment in this kind. One is what I proposed as this special fund of Germany, Deutschlandfonds, which would give us the chance to combine private and public investment also within the framework of the constitutional restraints in Germany, looking at investment from public money. And I think this will be very, very effective and gives us the chance to boost investment where it's needed. And the same is with the reform about the dealing with public debt in Germany, which I think is a good, moderate progress which we need in Germany, since it makes sense that we continue to have rules which are strict, but they must be more pragmatic so that we can do the necessary investments. I think for the European Union as a whole, it is necessary that we put together our strengths for boosting investment within the fiscal possibilities we already have. And I think there is a chance if we prioritize investment in this case. So on the question of the dealing of Elon Musk, I had a lot of things to comment in the past because he was discussing a lot about Europe. And just to repeat what I already said, we have the freedom of speech in Europe, and in Germany everyone can say what he wants, even if he is a billionaire. And what we do not accept is if this is supporting extreme right positions. And that is what I would like to repeat again. And on the question of cooperation, I think Europe needs cooperation with every part of the world. We are willing to do this. And you know that there are a lot of strategies for increasing our cooperation. And there is a willingness, and this is why we so much support the idea of free trade and also of developing free trade agreements. I'm happy that we are now successful with Mexico and Mercosur, but I think it should be not the last ones we do. There are many regions which are working very hard to get this done, with India, with Indonesia, with Malaysia, with many, many other countries and regions. And I think this should be now be more successful as it was in the past. It will create wealth if we have more free trade agreements between the European Union and other countries and regions.
Mr. Chancellor, if I may ask you a question, could you elaborate on your views related to strengthening European security? We are living in a very dangerous world. You mentioned NATO, but if you could enlighten us what you see as specific European efforts in this respect.
First, NATO will be key for security also in the future, and the transatlantic partnership is key for security in Europe. And I will do everything, and we all in Europe together will do everything to maintain the good cooperation we have with our partners transatlantic. And there are a lot of opportunities which we will have for a better security in the future. One aspect that changed in the past is that we all spent more for defense. I think nearly every country in Europe is now spending more than 2% of the GDP for defense, due to the fact that there is a threat to our security coming from Russia, which we really understand exactly after the aggression against Ukraine. And my view is that we should keep this, that those who have not reached the goal will do it very fast, and we should not forget that it was a big progress that Finland and Sweden joined NATO. When it comes to cooperation within Europe, I think there is a lot we can do, especially when it comes to defense industry. There is a possibility for the European Union to support industrial processes of investment into defense industry, but the more important aspect would be to support cooperation. I already spoke about the procurement. In my view, it is really not very useful that every of the 27 member states has to start again when it goes to buying tanks. If, for instance, one country already made a deal with a company, why not joining it? This would increase sales and make production cheaper, and this would really be to the benefit of everyone, as we know that there are 10 times more different sorts of weapons in Europe as in the United States, and this has an impact on scales for the production. So cooperating and easing cooperation with this way of procurement, I think, would make a big difference. We launched, for instance, the European Sky Shield Initiative, which also aims for having larger scales in what is necessary for being successful with the new weapons we use there and the missiles that are involved. The same is with cooperation of companies. I mentioned this question too, and there should be not a competition regulation that hinders companies in the defense sector to develop together something they want to sell together.
Mr. Chancellor, the theme of this meeting is the intelligent age. Now, the infrastructure for the intelligent age is a digital network a country has. And so sometimes the criticism that Germany is lagging behind in terms of its digital infrastructure. What do you intend to do to make sure that Germany and Europe become leading examples related to the infrastructure necessary for the intelligent age?
It is necessary to increase investment, and since this is mostly private investment, we have to increase private investment into the infrastructure. There are different sectors we have to look at. One aspect is what is related to mobile communication. My view is that we should develop a single market in this field, that it works more effective as it is today, so that the large telecommunication companies are more competitive also when it comes to global scale, global view on this question. And this would boost also their investment capacity. My view is that we should be front runners when it comes to 5G and further development in telecommunication. And with the legislation we now imposed in Germany and the new decisions of our authorities, it will take place that we will have a strong infrastructure which reaches nearly every part of the country and which also gives us a very good grid, a good mobile communication situation everywhere, also for industrial uses and industrial needs. The second is with fiber. I think this is increasing now. We supported the private sector in developing the grid, which is related, and this is also where we have to improve. When it comes to the use of digital opportunities by authorities, I think we improved, but we have to continue. And this is especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. My perspective is that Germany should be one of the front runners in using artificial intelligence also when it comes to public services. There is a big market for others to offer us, but also we are very successful in creating opportunities for developing the technology. Let me just mention the question of health We changed legislation on the use of digital data, which I think is now giving access to the biggest data resource for research for companies that are doing research in the pharmaceutical or medical sector. And I really see that there are now a lot of greenfield investments coming to Germany because of the new opportunities which are related to the new possibility to use data and digital infrastructure in Germany.
Mr. Chancellor, we're coming towards the end, and maybe one last question. The motto which I presented this morning in my opening remarks for this meeting should be constructive optimism, or you would call it also pragmatic optimism. Now, could you summarize for us what makes you really optimistic for the future?
Democracy, the people, and the opportunities we have when we are very much sticking to using the opportunities of the future. If it is artificial intelligence, if it is quantum computing, the newest technologies we have in biology and other fields, or for medicine, there are a lot of opportunities. We should use them.
Let's face on the opportunities and not on the risks, which we also have to deal with, but I think the opportunities are our future. Thank you very much, Chancellor Scholz, and looking forward to seeing you.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Ukraine, please join me in welcoming back to Davos the President of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky. I think you can hear from the warm applause that people are very much looking forward to hearing you speak, Mr. President, but also to greet you in the warmest way, welcoming you back to our annual meeting. We are really now approaching 3 years since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the largest European conflict since the Second World War. Nearly 1/5 of Ukraine's internationally recognized territory remains under occupation. The scale of human suffering since the 24th of February 2022 has been tragic. Almost 40% of your population requires humanitarian assistance. Millions face food insecurity. Deliberate attacks against your country's energy infrastructure expose Ukrainians to freezing temperatures. Attacks against civilian infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, have caused huge physical and mental harm on those that are most vulnerable. In the face of this tragedy, thanks for your leadership, Mr. President, you and your country remain steadfast. Your country remains firmly on the European path, having been granted EU candidate status. Mr. President, we truly hope that we will see the war come to an end in 2025 through a just and lasting peace that restores Ukraine's sovereignty, a peace that ensures future generations will never have to know the horrors of war. The world is eager to hear from you on what lies ahead for Ukraine in the coming year. Welcome back to Davos, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about the future of Europe with you, which basically means the future of most people here. Right now, all eyes are on Washington. But who's actually watching Europe at the moment? That's the key question for Europe, and it's not just about ideas, it's about people, first of all, about how they will live in a world that's constantly changing. 20 hours ago, President Trump's inauguration took place in Washington, and now everyone is waiting to see what he will do next. His first executive orders have already shown clear priorities. Most of the world's now thinking, so what's gonna happen to their relationship with America? What will happen to alliances, to support, to trade? How does President Trump plan to end wars? But no one is asking these kinds of questions about Europe, and we need to be honest about that. When we in Europe look at the United States as our ally, it's clear they are an indispensable ally. In times of war, everyone worries, will the United States stay with them? And every ally worry about that. But does anyone in the United States worry that Europe might abandon them someday, might stop being their ally? The answer is no. Washington does not believe Europe can bring them something that is really substantial. And I remember last year's Asia Security Summit in Singapore, the Shangri-La dialogue, and their representatives of the United States delegation openly said their top security priority is the Indo-Pacific region, the second is the Middle East and the Gulf, and only the third is Europe. And that was under the previous administration. And will President Trump even notice Europe? Does he see NATO as necessary, and will he respect EU institutions? Ladies and gentlemen, Europe can't afford to be second or third in line for its allies. If that happens, the world will start moving forward without Europe. And that's a wall that will not be comfortable or beneficial for all Europeans. Europe needs to compete for the top spot in priorities, alliances and technological development. And we are at yet another turning point, which some see as a problem for Europe, but others call a chance. Europe must establish itself as a strong global player, as an indispensable player. Let's not forget, there is no ocean separating European countries from Russia. And the European leaders should remember these battles involving North Korean soldiers are now happening in places geographically closer to Davos than to Pyongyang. Russia is turning into a version of North Korea, a country where human life means nothing. But they have nuclear weapons and a burning desire to make their neighbors' lives miserable. Even though Russia's overall economic potential is way smaller than Europe's, it produces several times more armor and military equipment than all of Europe combined. And that's exactly the path of wars Moscow chooses to take. Putin signed the new strategic deal with Iran. He already had a comprehensive treaty with North Korea. Whom do they make such deals against? Against you, against us, against Europe, against America. We must not forget about it. It's not by chance. These are their strategic priorities, and our priorities must match the challenge in politics and in defense and in economy. Such threats can only be counted and only counted together. Even when it comes to army size, Russia can field about 1.3, maybe 1.5 million troops. We've got more than 800,000 in our military. Second after us comes France with over 200,000, then Germany, Italy and UK. Everyone else has less. This isn't a situation where one country can secure itself alone. It's about all of us standing together to mean something. For now, thankfully, the influence of Iran's regime is weakening. This gives hope for Syria and Lebanon, and they should too become examples of how life can recover after war. And Ukraine is already stepping in to support the new Syria. Our ministers have been to Damascus, and we've launched a food aid program for Syria called Food from Ukraine. And we are getting our partners involved to invest in these delivers and in building food production facilities. And Europe could totally step in as a security donor for Syria. Time to stop getting headaches from that direction. And Europe, together with America, should put paid to the Iranian threat. Next, right now, it's not clear whether Europe will even have a seat at the table when the war against our country ends. And we see how much influence China has on Russia. And we are deeply grateful to Europe for all the support it's given our country during this war. But will President Trump listen to Europe? Or will he negotiate with Russia and China without Europe? Europe needs to learn how to fully take care of itself so that the world can't afford to ignore it. It's vital to maintain unity in Europe because the world doesn't care about just Budapest or Brussels. It cares about Europe as a whole. And we need a united European security and defense policy, and all European countries must be willing to spend as much on security as it truly needed, not just as much as they have gotten used to during years of neglect. If it takes 5% of GDP to cover defense, then so be it. 5% it is. And there is no need to play with people's emotions that defense should be compensated at the expense of medicine or pensions or something else. That's really not fair. We have already set up models of cooperation for Ukraine's defense that can make all of Europe stronger. We are building drones together, including some totally unique ones that no one else in the world has. And we are producing artillery together and in Ukraine, and it's much cheaper and faster than in any other country in the world. And investing now in Ukrainian drones production is investing not only in security of Europe, but the ability of Europe to be a security guarantor for other vital regions. And we need to start building air defense systems together, ones that can actually handle all types of cruise and ballistic missiles. Europe needs its own version of the Iron Dome, something that can deal with any kind of threat. We can't rely on goodwill from a few capitals when it comes to Europe's security, and whether it's Washington, Berlin, Paris, London, Rome, or after Putin kicks the bucket, some imaginary Democrat in Moscow someday. And we need to make sure no European country is dependent on a single energy supply, especially not Russia. Right now, things are on our side. President Trump is going to export more energy. But Europe needs to step up and do more long-term work to secure real energy independence. You can't keep buying gas from Moscow while also expecting security guarantees, help and backup from the Americans. That's just wrong. For example, the Prime Minister of Slovakia is not seeking access to the US gas, but does not lose hope to enjoy US security umbrella. And Europe must have a seat at the table when deals about war and peace are made. And I'm not just talking about Ukraine here. This should be the standard. Europe deserves to be more than just a bystander. With its leaders reduced to posting on X after an agreement has already been made. Europe needs to shape the terms of those deals. Next, we need a completely new, bolder approach to tech companies and technological development. If we waste time, Europe will lose this century. And now Europe is falling behind in the development of artificial intelligence. Already, TikTok's algorithms are more powerful than some governments. Already, the fate of small countries depends more on their owners of tech companies than on their laws. Already, Europe is not leading in the global tech race, falling behind both America and China. This isn't some minor issue. It's about weakness, first technological and economic, then political. And Europe is often more focused on regulation than on freedom, but when smart regulation is needed, Brussels hesitates. We should ensure maximum tech development in Europe and together make all significant decisions for the whole Europe. From weapons production to tech development, Europe must lead. And Europe must become the most attractive market in the world. And that's achievable. And finally, Europe must be able to guarantee peace. Peace and security for everybody, for itself, and for others, for those in the world who matter to Europe. Europe deserves to be strong, and for this, Europe needs the EU and NATO. Is this possible without Ukraine and without a just end to Russia's war against Ukraine? I'm certain the answer is no. Only real security guarantees for us will serve as real security guarantees for everyone in Europe. And we must ensure that America also sees us as essential. For that to happen, America's focus must shift to Europe so that one day in Washington they will say, all eyes on Europe, and not because of war, but because of the opportunities in Europe. Europe needs to know how to defend itself. Hundreds of millions of people with Europe to see its landmarks, to learn from its cultural heritage. Millions in the world dream of living like the Europeans do, and will we be able to keep it and pass it to our children? If we in Europe can answer positively, America will need Europe as well as other global players. Europe must shape history for itself and its allies to remain not just relevant, but alive and great. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Will you speak in English or in Ukrainian?
Oh, if I can Ukrainian, if I can use Ukrainian, it's good.
Your English is also becoming so good, huh?
My Ukrainian is better.
My Norwegian too.
If you want to hear how it sounds.
We're all in your hands.
Thank you so much. Yes.
So I'm asking the question. So there is a headset. So give people time to take it on because they shouldn't miss any of the nuances in your answers.
Thank you so much. How many questions you have?
Depends on how long your answers are. We have a backup.
You have only one question?
Oh, no. I have a few.
Okay.
You know, the war has almost gone on for 3 years now. And, you know, it's incredible how you are holding up. But, of course, the pressure has also increased, as you said, from Russia and their allies. I think we're all also wondering how your latest military strategy is, and also how the current state of hostilities are. You last summer decided to do the incursion of Kursk, the first time since the Second World War another country have taken a piece of Russia, but at the same time we know that Russia is pushing very hard in Donbass. So what is the current state of hostilities, and what is this part of the strategy that you can share with us here today?
That's really not a simple question.
No.
If I'll answer with all the details, maybe it will be only one question. Really. But okay. Дякую вам за це запитання. Передусім я хочу сказати, що ми досі знаходимося в Курському регіоні. І наші військові там. сил Російської Федерації не вистачило нас витиснути. Сьогодні там більше 60 тисяч російських військових саме на цьому напрямку. Окрім цього, було 12 тисяч північних корейців, 4 тисячі з яких загинуло. І це була стратегія Путіна втягнути ще одну країну. Скажу відверто, я дивився, що він підписав з Іраном. І там поки що ми не знайшли пункту щодо того, що він може затягнути і іранських військових в цю війну. Хоча, я вважаю, в принципі, глобально Іран вже втягнутий в цю війну після того, як вони почали наносити нам удари по нашій цивільній інфраструктурі, вбивати людей, по лікарням, по школах, попадали всюди своїми далекобійними дронами. І дали ліцензії на виробництво цих дронів на території Росії. Тобто наші військові, я їм дуже сильно вдячний за те, що вони на Курському напрямку відтягнули на себе удар. І це був удар зі Сходу. Росія хотіла захопити, окупувати місто Харків. Цей регіон, до речі, сьогодні знаходиться під нашим контролем. Люди там живуть. Там це було дуже небезпечно. Окупація Харкова, тому що там зараз біля 1,5 мільйона людей. Дуже багато людей. Дуже багато. І вони обстрілюють їх. На жаль, ну там такі люди. Просто викликає велику гордість, що вони там і працюють. Уявіть собі, під обстрілом. Вони працюють, не лишають свого міста. Дуже патріотичні, дуже міцні люди, я їм дуже вдячний. Так ось, Харківська операція провалилась у Путіна, і ми змогли їх зупинити. Потім він хотів окупувати знов північ, він і починав наступ на Київ з півночі. Майже, як ви сказали, 3 роки вже тому. І тут він вирішив почати з півночі знову і захопити велике місто Суми. І тоді нам прийшлось зробити превентивний удар в Курському напрямку, чим ми зробили буферну зону між військами Росії і нашим містом Суми. І тому сьогодні Суми під нашим контролем. На півночі російських військ і північно-корейських військ немає. Вони всі притягнуті до цього магниту, до наших військ на Курському напрямку. На Сході у нас складна ситуація, і там найбільші війська, може найбільш підготовлені, але найбільша кількість російських військ знаходяться на Сході. А вони тиснуть щоденно. Ви знаєте, що у нас була велика проблема з затримкою. Спочатку це було голосування Конгресу, потім були довгі постачання, і навіть зараз ті постачання минулого року, вони ще в дорозі, скажу вам відверто. Там наші хлопці борються, там все дуже-дуже непросто. На інших напрямках русські провалились. Яка стратегія?
Yes, from here.
Стратегія, ми повинні підійти до будь-якої дипломатії, яка призведе, я в цьому впевнений, до закінчення війни. Питання, яка вона буде? Якщо дипломатія буде сильна, і після цієї дипломатії, і після тих чи інших форматів перемовин України будуть міцні гарантії безпеки, що унеможливлять повернення Путіна з війною, то це буде сталий, справедливий, сильний мир для України, для Європи, як я це говорив, і, якщо чесно, для Америки також, для всього світу. Але якщо будуть слабкі гарантії безпеки, буде невпевненість, будуть тільки слова, то, відповідно, і від Росії ви отримаєте тільки слова. І вони знов повернуться з війною.
Mr. President, in your speech, you were underlining that Ukraine is also playing a role as a kind of a bulwark against Russia for the rest of Europe, and especially in some former East European countries, there is, of course, a lot of concerns for the future, taken into account what has unfolded in Ukraine. And you argued that for Europe, this should be the first priority. Then you said, for America, of course, they have a transatlantic ocean between themselves and Russia. But at the same time, we know, and you know, that American support is also needed, since they have half of the military capabilities of the world, so still a superpower. And I think we're all reflecting now on what will happen in Washington, D.C. In the coming weeks. You met Trump many times. It seems that you've established also a relatively good personal chemistry. But what do you think will happen in the coming year? Is there, because every war has to end, so now we're talking about the premises for deal. It has to be also future security for Ukraine and no new wars. So, a question, you think you are in a manageable situation now in the coming months, also with the new Trump administration?
Дякую за запитання. Передусім, я би дуже хотів, щоб всі зрозуміли, де ми і де Росія були у 22-му році, де ми, де Росія, де Америка, Європа сьогодні. Мені здається, що ці технічні дані, вони важливі, щоб зрозуміти, яка допомога, як і на що вона впливає. І які ризики у всіх інших. Якщо ми згадаємо повномасштабне вторгнення Російської Федерації у 22-му році, то ми точно можемо знати, що угруповування Росії тоді було десь біля 200 тисяч. Вони пішли таким угрупованням, пішли з півночі з ракетами, нас там пішли по південь, схід. Але було так 200 з чимось тисяч, ну, плюс ще та кількість сепаратистів, які контролювали і, на жаль, ще контролюють тимчасово окупований Схід, я маю на увазі Донецьку, Луганську область, ту частку, яку вони контролюють. Нам було дуже складно без допомоги всіх. Я дуже вдячний за те, що потім підключилася Америка і Європа. Але ви повинні знати, що на сьогодні 600 тисяч, а якщо бути точним, 608 тисяч знаходиться на території України, російських військ. Тобто це в 3 рази угруповання більше, ніж те, що на початку 22-го пішло на нас. І тому, коли кажуть, що є достатньо допомоги, порівняйте, що було тоді і що відбувається зараз. Тоді допомога Америки була 90%. Сьогодні те, що є у наших військових на полі бою, це 40% українське виробництво, 40% Сполучені Штати, 30% трішки менше 40, так, трішки менше 40. Тобто десь третина, трішки більше третини Сполучені Штати і трішки менше, ніж Сполучені Штати, Європа. І 40% десь, біля 40% України. Тобто ось що ми сьогодні маємо. І це велика різниця. І тому, коли кажуть, як ми тримаємось за рахунок серйозного зростання вітчизняного виробництва і зростання виробництва в Європі, і також зростання виробництва в Сполучених Штатах Америки. Але цього недостатньо, тому що ми зростали в рази. Європа так не зростала. Про це і в моїй промові було. І це дуже важливий момент. Зрозуміти, де ми, як нам триматися без допомоги і що буде робити Путін. Тепер подивіться, що може робити він А якщо не будуть чітких гарантій безпеки сильних, він зріс в рази також виробництв. У нього, я наводив такий приклад, у нього десь більше 30 на сьогодні, в мілітарі секторі 30 заводів. В Європі 45. А виробляє він в 2 рази, майже в 2 рази більше, ніж Європа. Тобто, ви розумієте, він вкладає все він вкладає в це, а Європа не довкладає. І це також факт. Хоча, як то кажуть, можливості технічні у Європи більше. Це без рахування Сполучених Штатів Америки. І коли не буде у вас сильних гарантій безпеки, об'єми будуть знижуватись, нам прийдеться розраховувати тільки на себе і на Європу, і цього замало. Цього замало. Потрібно, щоб Європа і Сполучені Штати були в союзі. Якщо Путін, наростив до більше ніж 600 тисяч своє угруповання, як ви вважаєте, якщо не будуть сильних гарантій безпеки, не НАТО і ще щось, військовий контингент, зброя, далекобійна зброя, розташована на території України, як ви вважаєте, якщо Путін повернеться, він точно повернеться з армією в 10 разів більше, ніж те угруповання на початку 22-го року, бо воно вже в 4 рази, майже в 4,5 рази більше. І коли він повернеться з цим угрупованням, для чого він повернеться? Для повної окупації всіх країн, які були колись республіками в Радянському Союзі, це номер 1. І потім буде робити так, як він робив з нашим Кримом. Він буде заходити в інші країни ЄС і НАТО для того, щоб там стояти хоча б трішечки, щоб робити ті чи інші вимагання, ті чи інші ультиматуми тим чи іншим країнам. Хтось повинен буде вийти з НАТО, наші Baltic Friends, Фінляндія, Швеція. Він буде нас всіх повертати до свого світу, який у нього вже живе в його голові. Ось що буде відбуватись, якщо не буде сильних гарантій безпеки. Одне з важливих запитань, яке буде ставити Путін, і ми всі це побачимо – зменшення української армії в рази. Ви всі це будете бачити. Бо це абсолютно зрозуміло. Якщо ми змогли зробити армію 800 тисяч плюс, це зрозуміло, що ми плюс Європа – це армія, яка спроможна не тільки стояти і боронитися свої кордони. Це армія, яка спроможна дати відсіч Путіну, і він це розуміє. Найшвидший шлях – тиснути на Сполучені Штати, щоб Україна не була в НАТО, і тиснути на всіх союзників, щоб вони нас тиснули, щоб ми зменшили армію в 5 разів. Ось це і буде. Це те, що він хоче. Не буде, я маю на увазі. Ми не дамо цього зробити. Але він буде намагатися це зробити. І найголовніше, мені здається, стратегія з президентом Трампом. У нас дійсно хороші відносини. Але тут ми маємо сьогодні такий прагматичний час. І для нас дуже важливо, щоб зайві голоси, які іноді навколо президента Трампа доносять дезінформаційну позицію або позицію проросійську, для нас дуже важливо, щоб Європа була гучна, щоб її чули, щоб голосів навколо президента Трампа було більше, для того, щоб він чітко розумів деталі і ризики, які можуть бути в майбутньому, причому дуже швидко. Чому? Трамп, він мені сказав, і він потім і публічно про це говорив, він буде робити все, аби закінчити війну в цьому році. І я йому сказав, що ми ваш партнер. Це війна у нас. Ми знаємо всі болючі місця. Ми розуміємо, як це для нас боляче. Ми витрачали наших людей. Це найбільша втрата для нас. Ми хочемо закінчити війну в цьому році. Але не просто слово швидко, а справедливо передусім. Надійно для нас, для українців, щоб вони повернулись додому, жили в безпеці і працювали. І мені здається, що це найголовніше. Принаймні ми будемо робити все для цього.
Mr. President, I just don't think there is a lot more to add. I felt
So it was not interesting, you see?
I was coming to that in the next sentence. I felt that the last piece was historic. I think you sent a historic reminder to all of us what is at stake. And I was thinking about what Winston Churchill once said, that the farther backward you can look, the farther forward we're likely to see. And I think if you have seen something in the past, you have a special responsibility for not repeating it in the future. And I think you feel here that there is a lot of support for you and your country in Davos. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.